Resuming debate, the honourable member for Edmonton Centre.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It is with deep concern that I rise in the House today. It's a deeply worrying time for hard-working people in my home province of Alberta and for families in Alberta, in British Columbia, and for our whole country. Mr. Speaker, the Government of Canada approved the building of the Kinder Morgan Trans Mountain Pipeline because it is in the national interest. This project is in the national interest because it represents a $6.8 billion investment that will create 15,000 jobs during construction and 440 jobs per year after that. This doesn't even mention all of the indirect jobs that will be produced from the opportunities related, benefiting over 2,500 local businesses alone. This pipeline is in the national interest, Mr. Speaker, because it will allow Canada, not simply Alberta, to get one of our country's most valuable natural resources to tidewater and to access markets beyond the United States. This means billions of dollars of investment and direct benefit to the Canadian economy. The TMX pipeline is in the national interest because it went through a rigorous review process under the interim principles brought in by our government that included consultation with First Nations peoples, listening to the honest concerns of citizens in the lower mainland of British Columbia and others who raised valid questions about protecting our oceans. We did something that for 10 years the previous government refused to do. We listened to the concerns of Canadians and we responded to those concerns because we knew that it would improve the Kinder Morgan project. We responded with a $1.5 billion ocean protections plan, and we helped to ensure that over $300 million in financial commitments to First Nations communities would flow from the proponent. We also worked closely with the Government of British Columbia under former Premier Christy Clark, who, after years of serious concerns about the project, agreed that our government and key stakeholders had taken the steps necessary to gain their agreement. This is a multi-billion-dollar infrastructure project that runs 1,150 kilometres, and it's natural that not everyone agrees with it. Let me give you a corollary, if you will, Mr. Speaker. As you know, I represent the downtown core of Edmonton, and I hear from people regularly about disagreements over converting a 1,350 square metre parking lot into an apartment complex. Reasonable people are going to disagree about reasonable projects, and that is why we have elected governments in place to weigh concerns and opportunities and to come to a decision. And that is exactly what has happened here. Sadly, Mr. Speaker, no sooner had our government approved the Trans Mountain Pipeline than the opposition united in rooting for the project to fail. Members of the federal NDP chose to abandon the effective and historic leadership by Premier Rachel Notley, who recognizes that the environment and the economy go hand in hand. And while it is critical to protect our environment, we also need to empower our economy. Like the Premier, our government understands that the Alberta energy sector will continue to be a world leader in renewable energy, in sustainable resource development, and the future of our economy. We also understand that using pipelines to transport our oil resources is safer and less carbon intensive than the alternatives. Our governments have both championed these economic realities and have been met with inexplicable intransigence from the federal NDP. Tout comme la Première ministre Rachel Notley, notre gouvernement comprend que le secteur énergétique de l'Alberta continuera d'être un chef de file mondial dans le domaine des énergies renouvelables, du développement durable des ressources et de l'avenir de notre économie. Nous comprenons également que l'utilisation des oléoducs pour transporter nos ressources pétrolières est plus sûre et requiert moins de carbone que les alternatives. Ce que nous savons par-dessus tout, c'est que la protection de l'environnement va main dans la main avec l'économie. C'est pourquoi ce projet diversifiera nos marchés d'exportation, respectera des normes de sécurité environnementale améliorées et créera des milliers d'emplois pour nos citoyens et nos citoyennes. Yet perhaps even more unbelievable, Mr. Speaker, is the Conservative Party's determination that TMX failed. Mr. Speaker, I can respect on a theoretical level that members of the Bloc, the Green Party, and the NDP sincerely disagree with pipeline projects. They have a point of view, and the economic arguments don't hold the same weight with them. What matters most to the federal Conservatives, however, is politics. They are scared to death of seeing a federal Liberal, provincial NDP partnership successfully get a pipeline to the coast. Monsieur le Président, je peux respecter sur le plan théorique Le fait que les députés du Bloc, du Parti vert et du NPD ne sont pas tout d'accord avec les projets de pipeline. Ils ont un point de vue et les arguments économiques n'ont pas le même point de vue pour eux. Toutefois, ce qui compte le plus pour les conservateurs fédéraux, c'est la politique. Ils ont vraiment peur de voir un partenariat libéral et provincial néo-démocrate obtenir un pipeline vers la côte. Cependant, il demeure que la décision que nous avons prise sur le projet Trans Mountain est fondée sur des faits, des éléments probants et l'intérêt national. The Conservative Party wants nothing more than to see this project fail, because Kinder Morgan's success in building the Trans Mountain Pipeline means that the heavy-fisted, closed-off, non-consultative, adversarial approach championed by Stephen Harper and Jason Kenney completely and utterly failed to get a pipeline built to Tidewater. They don't want to see the pipelines built or the energy sector succeed, particularly not on our watch, because their focus is to scare Canadians and to pit them against each other simply in order to gain votes. They aren't interested in pipelines, Mr. Speaker. They're interested in politics. And if they were interested in getting pipelines built, Mr. Speaker, they would have done so in the 10 years they had in office instead of being focused on the politics of division, which helps explain the intent behind today's motion. The Conservatives are asking this government to lean in and get this pipeline built. We have been doing so since the day the project was approved. We made a commitment, and every day since we've been working with industry to indicate and to communicate clearly that when a natural resources project is approved, it will proceed in a timely fashion to generate economic benefits for all Canadians. With our approval of Trans Mountain, it's already proceeding in a timely manner, with construction taking place at the marine terminal, with final steps for the detailed route being designed already underway. At every point following the approval of Kinder Morgan, the Conservatives have tried to tell Canadians that any challenge or concern is unsurmountable and declared the project dead. Every time this government accepted and defended this project to remove roadblocks and to counter false claims from this opposition. When the lawsuits were launched against the Kinder Morgan pipeline, the Conservative Party once again said that the pipeline was doomed. But our government is defending the pipeline in court, and we will continue to do so because the project is in the national interest. When municipalities in BC's Lower Mainland attempted to pass bylaws for no purpose other than to disrupt construction, once again, the Conservative Party pronounced the project dead. Our government responded by creating a process at the NEB that enabled Kinder Morgan to get the green light to go ahead. Recently, Mr. Speaker, the government of BC has announced that they are considering imposing a ban on additional tanker traffic off the BC coast, pending on a study on the transportation of bitumen. What the discussion to date has largely ignored is that these regulations, or the discussions, have not been yet put in place. Despite that, our government takes any attempt to infringe on federal authority and delay the building of a project in the national interest very seriously, and in response to these proposed regulations limiting tanker traffic, our government is already taking action. The morning after these proposed regulations were announced, the Prime Minister stated unequivocally, and I quote, "This pipeline is going to get built," end quote. In the days that have followed, the Minister of Natural Resources was unequivocal, stating, and I quote, "No province can impinge on the national interest," end quote. The Minister of the Environment, members of Cabinet, and government officials have been speaking with their counterparts in BC, working to find a solution, all before any regulations have even been designed. Mr. Speaker, our government has been involved in real action, while today's motion is mere theatre. We don't solve a national conflict or get pipelines built simply by passing a motion, snapping our fingers and saying, "Make it so." Canadians understand that Parliament can't just pass a motion, and the result will be BC and Alberta governments shaking hands, ending all of their disagreements, and all will be well. This motion is neither a serious proposal nor a serious solution. What is important to note, Mr. Speaker, is that our government has been acting every day since this pipeline was approved. And if there was any doubt that this is not a serious motion, simply have a look at the last words. They want a solution to a motion of interprovincial conflict in 72 hours. 3 days, Mr. Speaker. You can't get a blood test result in this country in 3 days. You can't even get flowers delivered on Valentine's Day without 3 days' notice. A letter can't get from Edmonton to Ottawa in 3 days, Mr. Speaker. Let's ask a serious question. We're going to end an interprovincial trade dispute with this Parliament saying get it done in 3 days? Get real. This conflict can only be resolved with open communication, cooperation, and hard work, not through cynical, theatrical, unbinding motions that just say do this. We saw that movie for 10 years, Mr. Speaker, and we know where it ends. Nowhere. our government, together with all interested parties, will get this pipeline built.
Bravo.